Hey guys, Reabault here with another video. This time I'm going to be drawing the cover to Chapter 5 in the background there. This cover was pretty simple, just Evalin's face. I liked it though. Sometimes simple works the best, and it sure makes the creation process that much faster, which is really what's most important. Anyway, in this video, aside from the illustration taking place on screen, I thought I'd go ahead and talk about the three primary races of this world. The three intelligent mammal races, effectively the three mammal races, seeing as there are no other mammals on this planet besides these intelligent bipedal three. In Hawkheir we only see two, and a picture is painted of the relations between these two races on a social and even on a political scale. The two we are introduced to are the Ursan and the Lusan, whilst the third of which we have not seen any members of yet are the Musan, although we have a suggestion of Musan blood in some of the characters. As well as the races, I'd like to also go into the moons of the world, if only briefly, towards the end. Ursan are the very tall, short-eared, short-footed and short-tailed western race that are partially native to the country Hawkheir takes place in, Reabault. The best examples in the story of typical Ursan are Marcus, Eric and Yenaj. Marcus has the typical yellow fur of a northwesterner. The yellow to brown colouring is very common amongst Ursan, with occasional green slipping into the mix. Eric has the marked black fur that is common of the western continental coast. Less common, simply due to it being more focused in certain areas rather than widespread like the yellow and brown colouring. Yenaj has the most uncommon of all, as white is strictly limited to descendants of the frozen land across the Northern Sea. Most typically, Ursan will have yellow, brown or black fur, and green, yellow, or sometimes orange eyes. However, we do see the oddly red coloration of Eric's children, Eleanor and Emmanuel. His wife not being present in the story is the sister of Belle, who has brown hair and is notably short for an Ursay. I'd like to quickly interject that Ursan males are called Urs and females are called Ursay. This convention applies to both Lusan and Musan as well. Lusan are generally shorter than Ursan and have very close proportions to humans, except with notably longer feet. Their tails and ears are also at least twice as proportionately long as Ursan. Evalin is the only presently living example of a Lusan in the story, but in the vision of the past sequences, we see a number of other Lusan and we get a very good idea of how varied they can be. Their fur generally takes various shades of blue, violet, and grey. Evalin is a typical example of a northwestern Lusay, with her grey-blue fur and similarly blue eyes. Also notable, especially in Evalin's case, is that many Lusan have high and pronounced cheekbones and their eyes are set slightly further back, making their noses seem more pronounced. The darker blue of Lusan, such as Drizel, is more common further south, with shades of sky blue, as in what you see of Zelwe, are very typical in the Midlands. Reabault being somewhat a southern Midland, many of the native Lusan share these particular colours. Rarer are the purple colours, which are more typical of eastern Lusan, and those sharing blood with Musan, although violet and even magenta eyes are not so uncommon. Finally, the Musan we haven't seen yet, but as mentioned we've seen hints of them here and there. They are well known for their short stature and their exceptionally long feet and tails, and large round ears. They're focused much further east in general, and many have left the west since the conflicts between their neighbour races began. Generally, they can have anything from burning orange to blood red to deep violet coloured fur, with the latter being notably rarer and more known in the Midlands and West, where the blood begins to mix with their neighbours. Effectively, lighter oranges are a sign of Ursan blood, and darker violets are a sign of Lusan blood. In future entries, I do hope to introduce some Musan characters, as they have been the most difficult to figure out from a design standpoint. Strangely, to accompany these 3 races, we also have 3 moons, which is where the title Beneath 3 Moons comes from, as all the stories of this world take place beneath these 3 moons. It should be noted that these moons are generally considered as deities of sorts by many of the belief systems of this world, including the basic beliefs of the Western Midlands where Hawkheir takes place. The closest of these moons is Sheer the Pearl, a massive white body with very little to actually tarnish its surface. This moon represents mercy, kindness, and generosity, but also represents the repayment of debts and the punishment of treachery, greed, cruelty, and fraud. This deity can effectively be considered as cruel as she is kind, depending on whether or not you're in her favour. Her name and her mercy is most commonly called on in times of strife. Despite seeming the largest, she is not in fact larger than the second moon, Ararea. Ararea appears smaller than Sheer, but that is simply because she's much further away. Representing honesty, devotion, and general faith, as well as being the deity behind memory and the past and future of life, Ararea has the alternative aspect of being considered highly distrustful and entirely unforgiving, forever resenting those who have wronged her. Being the representation of memory, curses you to never forget the good or the bad. Finally, Borea is the smallest and furthest moon. Being a vivid orange-red color, she is very easy to spot in the sky and represents justice, courage, and selflessness, as well as payment and penitence in the form of bloodshed. As such, she is closely tied to conflict, but also childbirth, effectively making her name the most common thing heard on the battlefield and delivery room. She is considered sinister by some, as she is the deity of delivering violent punishment and suffering for a cause beyond the individual, a soldier's life for a victory, a mother's pain for the birth of her child. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was fun and interesting for you guys. I have a few more planned, the next of which I think I'll use to talk about the more secretive races of the world, including the Shadow, and perhaps talk more specifically about Crypt and Yenage and why they seem to know so much about each other in a general sense. Make sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on what I've talked about and anything you'd like to know about. Subscribe if you haven't, as I suspect I'm going to have much more time for other general illustration videos very soon. Leave a like, favorite, whatever you feel like doing, and thanks again, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Hawk isn't a major character, but appears consistently throughout Volume 1 and the first part of Volume 2. He appears most often as a simple hawk, which is unimaginatively why he is known as such, although at no point does he actually reveal his real name. However, when he doesn't appear as a hawk, he takes the form of a humanoid being with what appears to be a bird-like face.